Once again, I welcome the viewers of VNTV and I greet you all as well. Thank you for honoring me with your attention, and I appreciate the opportunity to share with you what I've experienced. Now there will be more discussions about experiences, but it's really important that we also cover a bit of the theory, because we're going to practice tomorrow and the exercises are coming. If anything comes up during the exercises, then the theory will also be important. So we can't skip the theory either, along with the important rules and the fundamental elements. So we can change our fate a little bit. However, we have to take action for that, and we need to do it really hard. That's what I've realized. We need to do the right thing at the right time. So it's actually that simple. We just have to act appropriately at the right moment. But we have to take action for that, and we need to do it really hard. That's what I've realized. We need to do the right thing at the right time. So it's really that simple. You have to act appropriately at the right time. You know, you have to press the right button and the washing machine starts. And if there's no stop button, because it hasn't worn off, then you know that's the button and you press it. So life is really a game, and the great creator created it, and we participate in it. And I see that I'm starting to know the rules more and more confidently. I'm moving more and more confidently in my life, and I owe a lot to his law and his legal foundations. These have been established by yogis for thousands of years. What can we do to have a more positive life and turn our lives around? Especially if you want a turning point. Positive actions. You can nurture pure thoughts. I pray, chant mantras, and meditate. So for positive actions, for example, I can tell you that for 10 years I worked with children's gymnastics and children's yoga, serving 150 children a week. And guess what? I rarely say this, but now I will tell you how. For many years, if you had looked into it, I was going to adopt a kindergarten foundation. And I got to know the leader, my friend Hella. And there were 344 kindergartens with multiple disadvantages in Hungary at that time. That's pretty much it. This was before COVID, 5 to 8 years ago. I funded and traveled to Szabolcs, Szatmár-Bereg. A post online said the kids aren't crying because they must come, but cry to go home. I recommend that you visit kindergartens and see how the kids live there. Kids aren't crying in kindergarten because they have to be there, but because they have to go home where there's no food or warmth. We're going to Szabolcs, Szatmár-Bereg County to help disadvantaged kids. I'm helping disadvantaged kids. If you have non-perishable food or outgrown clothes, please give them to Uncle Csaba, and I guarantee they will be delivered respectfully. Because at home there's no food, there's no warmth, and in kindergarten there's everything. So I decided with my older son, or rather my middle son, Bence, and my friend Alex, who's been with me for 10 years now, that we would start yoga together. I told them, guys, we're heading to Szabolcs, Szatmár-Bereg County, and we're going to serve these little kids, these kids from multiple disadvantaged backgrounds. And imagine I adopted the kindergarten kids, and we went week after week. Every week we visited a kindergarten. So I had 150 kids, and I was present in 7 kindergartens in Tarnok, Soskut, Puszta Zamor, Diósd, Erd, and I sent an email to the parents, 150 emails, saying, "Dear parents, I'm going to serve the kids from multiple disadvantaged backgrounds. If you have any non-perishable food, outgrown clothes or other things, please give them to Uncle Csaba, and I guarantee that it will get there with great respect." And my life is the guarantee that it will get there. So it won't be like I collect everything and sell it by the kilo, but it will be there and I'll take photos of it. And then the parents started to get involved, and the clothes came by the bag. I always said that only something that you would wear with your child. So we emptied the pantry of non-perishable food and we went out and served. I don't want to brag about myself, but I put a lot into the piggy bank. I understood that if you don't put it in the bush, then why do you want to take it out? Or what do you want to take out? And I started having these conversations with myself. A lot of people want many things, but they don't put anything in. So you have to put something in first, and if you put something in, then you'll be able to take something out. Our parents taught us this because if you didn't put anything into the piggy bank, you definitely wouldn't take anything out of it. It was totally empty, that's what it was. So if you do these things, you create positive karma. And I didn't do this to be like, wow, I'm being calculating and creating positive karma. But this came naturally because I love kids, and I wanted to get to know the little kids from the countryside. They were really cute. Just imagine the kindergarten teachers, the kindergarten directors. I have these beautiful pictures from those times, and I like to look at them when I'm feeling nostalgic, because I love those times too. They said, "Stay here, Uncle Csaba. We need someone like you." I told them. They said they would provide a service apartment. They would pay me. And it doesn't matter if I'm not a kindergarten teacher. I don't need a degree. Just come here and help. That's exactly the kind of person we need. And I told them that I can't be everywhere with the kids because I can't be everyone's dad. So when you perform positive actions, these positive actions have an impact on your life, not just for others, for you too. And after a while, it becomes natural for a person to do these things. And these will come back to you. This will be your positive karma when we talk about this. I pray every morning and evening. Well, who am I praying to? To the God living within me, who is also in everything within you. Well, everything is effective. Prayer is your way of addressing your God within yourself. And then he will answer you. If you are in tune, you will understand the answers. Until you're tuned in, won't understand the answer, you won't even hear it. So I've realized that with being attuned, understand what he's saying, and I know what actions to take because I'm in the moment. And we can resolve our karmas. He says, let's never forget that we're just travelers, right? This journey is very quick. We just arrived here recently, and we're heading home in 3 days. So this is pretty much what earthly life looks like. So it's kind of like we've come here to Sutivan for 10 days. And in the end, we go back, and that's the end. Don't wait for the end. I've been a caregiver for many, and it's not worth waiting. Many suffered and regretted not acting sooner, saying, if I had known, if I had done that. But by then, it was too late. So don't wait for the end. But by then, they couldn't do it anymore because they had to be changed. So don't wait for the end. Try it with your life. So be grateful for being born as a human. This is the greatest grace in life. There's no greater grace. So you're not a single-celled organism. You're not a mammal. You're not an animal. And I'm not degrading that. Everyone is needed. You were born a human. You can be conscious. You can figure out why you were born, what your life's purpose is, why you're here on this planet, and what you need to do to make it positive and to take charge of your life. This yoga has been able to help me. So we have our visible physical form, our body, and there are 4 more subtle layers. Good. So that's why I say there are still some here. These are wanderers. These are layers. Imagine it like an onion. The onion has dry parts too. You peel off the little dry layers of the onion, and in the end, there's the onion inside. And then you'll find that onion. But you have to remove those dry parts. So now the situation is, so one of them is the Annamaya Kosha, which is the food sheath, meaning that you become what you eat. You know this saying, or have you heard it before? That you become what you do. Plus, it's not just about what kind of food you take in, but also what environment you're in and who you associate with. But all of these influence your life. I usually say that karma works like this. If you're in the company of someone and you're not being attentive, then if they get slapped, you're likely to get slapped too, because you're with them. And after a while, it doesn't look like you're not associating with anyone, but rather you're consciously observing your life and paying attention to the symptoms based on which you choose your company, because you can choose your company, which means that I serve a lot of people too. About 100 people come to me every month. I'm currently scheduling appointments for October, but I don't associate with them. I associate with them only while I'm serving them, but in my everyday life and during my free time, I don't associate with them. Not because I'm special, and not because I'm someone, because I'm exactly as much as you are. I just examine it with my awareness and say that I don't associate with him because he's in a different binding force. You know, tamas, rajas, sattva. Tamas is well, that's how I would introduce it to you. Rajas is the passionate one. At this point, there's a lot of passionate energy moving around, and there's always a desire to do something. Then there's sattva, when it's pure and calm. And I also pay attention to myself to see which binding force I'm in at any given time. Because it's variable, so there's no fixed binding force, but generally these are mixed binding forces, either tamas rajas or rajas sattva. It's very rare to be in pure sattva. Either tamas is rajas or rajas is sattva. It's generally very rare to be in pure sattva. So I often find myself in rajas sattva, meaning I pay attention to living clearly and following the basic rules of purity. We'll get to that in a moment. And then sometimes I slip into passion. Maybe I add a bit more spice than necessary. So that's important too. You have to pay attention to what you eat. What triggers certain, because you already know that you don't need that. So the teachings of yoga emphasize positive human relationships. So when you're talking to someone, pay attention to how they speak. They will immediately start to pay attention too. But then you know who they are. Well, what he says, he also tells what his life is like. Because as he manifests, he is himself. So there's a yoga teaching about this, where the wise master is sitting at the edge of the village, and next to him sits the disciple, and then come the travelers, and all sorts of tourists. And they ask, Master, what are the people like in this village? And then the master replies, what are they like to you? Travelers and all sorts of tourists, and they ask, Master, what are the people like in this village? And then the master says what the people are like in Mauknal. And then he says, oh, they're very wicked, malicious, they report everyone. And he says, welcome. It's great that you've come such a long way, but the people here are just the same. Please come into the village. And then another one comes and asks, Master, what are the people like here? And then he says, well, what are they like where you come from? Oh, they're very nice, sweet, helpful, everyone supports everyone. He says, well, you had to travel such a long way, but welcome, the people here are just the same. And then the disciple turns to the master and says, Master, something's not right here, this is hypocrisy. What's really going on? Well, one said they were bad and the other said they were good. And the master said that everyone will see in life what they are. So, the formula of life is quite simple. What bothers you is a disturbance within you. That's what I realized. So when I find myself making excuses, when I find faults in someone, I start to dive into a very deep, self-reflective meditation, and I begin to search for what needs to be brought up from very deep within, because that trait is also in them. It's just not on the surface, but it's suppressed, it's down in the lower chakra. And these can be released, and it's worth releasing them. And after a while, you realize that the world is a mirror. So what's inside is also outside. What you are, you see immediately. And these can be released, and it's worth releasing them. And after a while, you realize that the world is a mirror. So what's inside is also outside. What you are, you see immediately. For example, when I write emails, I always read them multiple times, because what I write to others, I'm also writing to myself. What you are, you see immediately. For example, when I write, I always read the email several times, because what I write to others, I also write to myself. Because what I write to others is who I really am. So I look at life this way now, and I always observe what I've written, what was in it. In the past, I even used to set the email aside for a bit, let it rest, thinking I wouldn't send it just yet. I'd sleep on it. So I've had times like that too. So this is how awareness shows up for me. This is how it shows up for me. I don't know how else to do it. The next. So there was the Annamaya Kosha, and then there's the Pranamaya Kosha. Prana means life force energy. This energy is your sheath. This actually surrounds your body. It's your aura. It's nothing other than your aura. Those who have fine perception can see the aura too. And prana is a subtle material nourishment. You need it, just like food and air. It's just a finer energy. And there's Manomaya Kosha, which is the sheath of the energy of the mind. The mind can go anywhere in the blink of a thought, and every thought immediately opens up a plane. So whatever your thought is, it has already been created. So that's already a world that has started for you. You've already planted a seed. Because thoughts are like that. Whatever you think about, sooner or later, you'll reap it because it will manifest in your world. And there's the Vijnanamaya Kosha, which is the sheath of intellect. This can be both positive and negative, depending on the company we're in. It's very important who you associate with. What you get involved in, what you eat, well, you become what you eat. The foundation of yoga philosophy is ahimsa. Ahimsa means nonviolence. I can only tell my own story about how I became a vegetarian and then a vegan. I didn't become vegan because I jumped into this vegan craze or because I'm a veganist or anything like that. It actually started when I was a child. I didn't like meat, and I always pushed it to the edge of my plate. My parents didn't really like that. And in our fridge, there were like 7 or 8 types of cold cuts. My dad was well off. So I was too. And I always said, isn't there something else? And they would say, what else? You can't choose from 8 different kinds of cold cuts. Well, Csaba is picking again, and I got a tip. And actually, that was settled, but I couldn't communicate it. As a child, I couldn't even express that to my parents. Dad, Mom, I don't want to eat this. Please understand. And I started to suppress this within myself. So now this brought on symptoms where I got canker sores. Know what a canker sore is? My mouth got to a point where I couldn't eat anymore. And then I didn't eat, so it was like, look, Csaba isn't eating. I was still as thin as my mom. She called me Andy's grandchild. So my ribs were sticking out, and actually, we didn't even need an x-ray. A neon light was enough. We just looked at it with Csaba to see what was going on. And then this kid isn't eating. So what's up? Is it wormy or what's wrong with him? Well, there's nothing wrong. He just doesn't want to eat that. So I had to learn to communicate what I feel and what I'm going through, which is my world. I learned this. For 50 years, I've learned to express myself with love. I've realized this in my life. I became vegetarian, then vegan. I couldn't handle milk or cheese. I observed my life, analyzed my diet, and realized I didn't need certain foods. I sought lactose-free options. Csaba became vegan. And after a while, I got really into it, and then I became vegetarian, and then I became vegan. The vegan part came about because I couldn't handle milk. I love cheese, but I couldn't handle cheese either. I won't go into details about how that happened. The point is, I practiced self-reflective meditation, that's what I call it, but in real life. I observed a day in my life, and in that day, I saw what I eat, what I cook, what happens, and what the end result is. Then I analyzed it and said, after a while, I don't need this anymore because it's not good for me. So there was the lactose intolerance thing, and then I looked for lactose-free milk, lactose-free cheese. So I went through those nice little circles. And in the end, I realized that the story is very simple. Csaba became vegan. He arrived at his vegan life. So there was the thing where I was lactose intolerant. So I looked for lactose-free milk, lactose-free cheese. I went through those nice little circles too. And in the end, I realized that the story is very simple. Csaba became vegan. He arrived at his vegan life. And actually, it's just a different vibe. He arrived at his vegan life. And actually, it's just a different vibe. It's not better, it's not worse, it's not higher, and it's not lower. So I can't say that I would be anyone separately, because I am not. I am simply who I am, but now I live who I am. Do you understand what I mean? So I've been this since I was a kid. I just couldn't embrace it because I didn't dare to say it, and I didn't dare to own it. Now I'm embracing it in my life, that this is who I am, and that's how I show up. Now I'm embracing in my life that this is who I am, and that's why I show up this way. And let's move on. The key is that we always need to apply Buddhism, reason, and right discernment together. So these are really important in life, to be able to navigate what is a yes for you and what is a no, because this is still not eternal. That's why I said to examine my words, as I'm sharing what I know, for sure, a truth, for thousands of years, and from my life. I'm showing how I live. This is my way. You should see how it is in your life. Don't just accept my words. There's also the constant awareness. This is the salvation bubble. But this is how it is for me, the way I live it. You should examine how it is in your own lives. Don't just accept everything I say. And there's also the constant awareness. This is the salvation bubble. This is actually our causal body. This is a very delicate part. And it's really hard to get past it. Because our desire for comfort and the pursuit of pleasures is huge. So everyone wants to enjoy. Everyone wants to fulfill their desires. But then they will suffer. That's what I've realized because passion causes suffering. This is what I understood. Liberation, or moksha, means that the Atman is freed from the limitations of the koshas, so your true self is freed from the koshas, from the layers. Like peeling the layers off an onion, all the unnecessary stuff comes off. And then suddenly, the mind creates the world. So every thought, every idea, every feeling is a world in itself. So there are all kinds of worlds inside you. As much as you feel, as much as you think, each of these is a plane. There are many layers within a person. That's what I've realized. And you keep jumping between these planes. Because sometimes this is happening in your life. Sometimes that's happening. It's good if you notice it. And you created all of this. So we are the creators, you understand. So creation happens through us. The yama and niyama, this is the foundation of yoga, and you can't avoid it. So when I trained yoga teachers for 3 years, I trained 70 educators to become yoga instructors. And we trained children's yoga teachers with Nitaj Pramprabhu and Kis Zoli. If you ever hear about them, we worked together for 3 years. And I always told the instructors that as long as you don't live the basics of yoga, the yama and niyama, we're just talking in circles. So if there's no foundation, then nothing exists. So nothing comes from nothing, which means I'm going to tell you the basics. Good. The first is nonviolence, himsa. It means that I don't encourage, think, or say anything harmful to others, whether in thought, spoken word, action, or by encouraging others. Well, this is already not an easy task, but it can be done. The second is truthfulness. Oops. You know, this used to be a fundamental virtue, just so you know. The third is non-stealing. Well, that's also part of it. But not just the spiritual product or anything at all. So it's not just that I'm not taking your phone away from you. The fourth is moderation. That I'm moderate, that's enough for me. I don't need that much. I'm not satisfied with just that. So you are moderate. The fifth is contentment, that you're satisfied with your life, that it's just right as it is. Because what's in your karma will activate. The sixth is non-accumulation, so you don't accumulate unnecessarily. So imagine, I got to the point where Kelly, and so really it's been 50 years, so the last 15, 20 years have been really intense, but it all started when my mom passed away in 2002. I held her hand, and then in 2018, my dad left his body. After that, I got divorced, and I could go on listing these events one after another. Suddenly, I found myself starting a new life with just a suitcase. The mover told me he had never seen a situation like this, where the owner was the one moving out, because I asked him to help me move from the apartment I was renting in Kapusvar. The whole move took about 10 minutes. So I don't have any unnecessary things anymore. So I started by giving away my piano, which was a big part of my childhood, was one of my most beloved instruments, and yet I decided to give it away. It was really hard, heavy, and I just didn't want to carry it around anymore. This harmonium is enough for me, and it's heavy too. So it's one of my very, very favorite instruments, and yet I gave it away. It's really heavy, like a tank, and I'm not going to carry it around anymore. This harmonium is enough for me. It's heavy too. I can take this with me, or I can borrow it, because I didn't bring it with me now. I actually asked for it from our friend Gitendria Praga. So, if there's nothing, something remains. Gave everything away. Donated preschool instruments to kindergartens. I let go of everything that faded by giving it away. Left the Tarnock house for my son and grandchild, and realized I don't need more. Everything that faded away around me, I let go of by giving it away. I left the house in Tarnock for my older son and my grandchild. And suddenly I realized that I actually don't need anything more. So, I have everything I need in life. I have a car that I've been using for 7 years. It belongs to a mom who gave it to me because they went abroad to Thailand. And at that time, I didn't have a car. The lady said, well, Uncle Csaba, since I've been coming to you for yoga, I'll leave my car with you. And then they went abroad because their child went to a monastic school. And actually, I've been using this car ever since. So I don't have a name because I just pay for everything. So actually, I have almost nothing to my name, but I'm still here. So, in life, I've really gained a lot of courage. In recent years, I've become very bold, and I've thrown out the sandbags because all those sandbags are unnecessary. But you always need just enough to be able to land. So, a hot air balloon can't stay up all the time, and neither can a plane. Right. So it needs to come down. So the earth is important. So we need to ground ourselves to the earth as well. The lower chakras are important too, the root chakra and the sacral chakra. So everything needs to work at the same time. So today, it's a legal matter, what I call comfort law, which means that he has hot water and he has cold water. He's aware that they're chemtrailing. I see everything, I hear everything, I'm in the loop. But what can I do with this? Well, I can't stand in front of a plane and say, you can't take off unless you go through me, and then I'll tell you what's what. If we talk about it, nothing will come of it anyway. They exactly shut you down about what you're talking about. They also allow you to talk about it. After all, this is creation, so they are aware of creation, that what you talk about and what hundreds of thousands, millions are talking about is being created because we give it our attention. I took my attention away from these things. I also see them, and I also pay attention by touching them so that I can see them in the periphery. But that's not my main focus. My main focus is on what I can do about it. In my awareness, which means I go to a panchakarma once a year and detox my body, which means you go to a pre-Vedic clinic and they detox the heavy metals, the toxins from your head out of you. I was there for 16 days. It's worth paying attention to these things. So doing detox programs, fasting, so being aware. You can't stop what's happening right now. You can't stop it because it has to happen. I understood this there, that we say it like this, that it's Krishna. Nothing can happen in the universe without his knowledge and permission. Nothing. Not even a blade of grass can move. Well, can you imagine that the Creator, who is the Supreme Creator, Lord Krishna, doesn't know what's happening? Well, how could he not know what's happening? He knows everything. I just usually say that Jokey Ewing was needed in Dallas, right? Do you remember? So Darth Vader was needed next to Yoda and Lord Skywalker. So both sides are needed, because that's how you can grow, and so can I. Because if you don't see this, you won't get to know the other. So the contrast is very important. because that's how we can navigate. So everything happens for our sake. That's what I realized. But what I know I will do, I leave the rest to God. The time has come, and I'm waking up everyone, sharing the rights, explaining the basics of how I got to this point. But what can we do? Let's discuss what actions can be taken. But what does it do? What can we do? So now let's also talk about what actions can be taken, because there's already plenty of talk. It's been happening for years, decades, but no one does anything. Well, all we can do, kids, is nothing more than to be aware and to cleanse your body, trying to stay healthy and to stay this world today. This is the task. And I think the biggest task is to try to remain human, because right now, boundary is very thin in an instant. You see that, right? In an instant, the world can take you away. And these trials will come. It will keep coming because this world is increasingly confronting you with your own creation. That means an energy comes down. And with that energy, there's a person, there we are. And we decide, we have a little of choice, whether I will be Darth Vader or I will be Yoda. That's how much you can decide. And both forces, if you look at them, both exist, but you choose and you go that way. And that's all you can do. You are aware and you pay attention. You can't do anything else. So the 9th is the study of scriptures, which are thousands of years old, the Vedas. The 10th is devotion to God. It's about giving yourself to God. The 10th is devotion to God. It's about giving yourself to God. This happened to me like this. We reach the end. Right now, the personal events are coming that I start in 2020, because these will be recent years. You know, alongside massage, main focus was that I worked with children. I had 150 kids in 7 kindergartens and 1 elementary school in Diosdi and the surrounding area. And they just called me Uncle Csaba. That was my name. I had 150 little kids, and I loved them. They loved me too. Then COVID came, and the kindergarten director said, Uncle Csaba, you can't come to the kids anymore because you can't hold recreational programs. There was a chance that, yes, I could have a special permit, a kindergarten director's permit, but I didn't get the permit, so I let it go. I told them that it's okay. It has to be this way. Well, it was easy to say, then I just collapsed. So now comes the point that a 46-year-old family man, this was 4 years ago, now I'm 50, with 3 kids, 2 adults and 1 minor, suddenly goes from having an income to 0 from Friday to Monday. Isn't this exciting? From Friday to Monday. So Friday, Saturday, similar to Monday. There was no more children's gymnastics. It had been 10 years. So I felt like I put in 10 years. Well, I didn't even put it in, but it doesn't matter. The point is, I was placed in this situation and I was serving the children. And when I let go, my mind collapsed afterward. So it happened that in Tarnok, at our homecoming dog's apartment, I knelt down in the living room. I was home alone. And I started sobbing, crying. My mind collapsed. And I said, Krishna, God, let it be over. Just take me. That's enough. I am 46 years old. Found myself zeroed out. That was enough. I'm not going to struggle with anything anymore. I put in 10 years. That's enough. And I remember the moment. It was such a moment that I felt like I had died. And I cried a lot at 46 years old. And then, about a day or 2 or 3 later, suddenly my phone rang. So I picked up the phone, and Attila Ermaleki was calling me. You should know that he is the most famous chiropractor in Hungary, that's for sure. So he has 250,000 subscribers, and the guy is really talented. And I got to know him a while back, and I went to see him, and I became friends with him because I considered him a person too. It's okay that it's foreign, and nothing bothered me. I never care who came from where. I'm always interested in people, and I'm always looking for the person. And I became friends with Attila, and then suddenly Attila called me and said, Chabi, I hear that because of COVID you can't go to the kids. Do you have work? I said, there's no Attila, my income is 0. And Attila said, okay, Chabi, then now you made 100 business cards because you're a masseur. And I'll teach you how to be a chiropractor, and I'll teach you everything, all the tricks, everything I learned in the Legion, what my masters passed on to me. And suddenly, the joint project started with Attila. He passed on his knowledge to me. He passed it on to very few people. Because you see, we became friends, which means he is a kind-hearted person. Few know him as deeply, thank God, as I do. From there, he sent me to Mihaly Vekas Misi, who graduated from Oxford as an osteopath, and I became a manual therapist, and I learned that too. This is where my life as a healer started. I prefer to call it my helping role. I let one go, and the other one came in. My life changed in 3 to 4 days, but I had to let go of everything for that. And from that point on, I really gained a lot of confidence. I became more courageous because of what I read in the Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures. When Krishna talks to, we'll kill the other army. That's out of the question. He'd rather go into the woods and give up. And Krishna tells him that you can give up, you think. It's just that all of this has already happened, what you're doing. You've always been here and you always will be. You just don't remember that you were here. And Krishna remembers it as God. So, actually all of this has already happened. We were just here in different outfits. There's always more to come, and if you let go of the reins, then Arjuna handed the reins over to Krishna. Krishna became his charioteer. And from then on, what God wants will happen. So it won't be what I want, because that's my ego, which is fine as long as that little ego is there, the ahamkara, just a bit there wanting to live. So you just want to survive. But the rest, you hand over to God. And this surrender for me happened in such a way that I completely collapsed. I lost everything, but you hand the rest over to God. And this surrender for me manifested in such a way that I completely collapsed. I lost everything. So by the time I was 46, I had 0 income. That's how surrender came to me. So by the time I was 46, my income was half zero. This is how surrender came to me. Krishna showed me this so that I would learn for a lifetime how it works. And from that point on, I surrendered myself. And from then on, everything works. So now it's what he wants. And well, I've put together some stories for you that I'm just going to highlight 1 or 2 things for you after COVID that I lost the kids. I'm ordering from Besnur. It's a small village with about 1,000 to 1,300 residents. A little sack village. How did I end up in Besnur? Everyone asks, what are you doing in Besnur? In Besnur, I met a reflexologist who treated my feet. We became friends over 6 months of weekly sessions. I later told her I was moving to Tarnok, so she couldn't visit me anymore. She was surprised. I wanted to try out the reflex zones to see what she could do, because many people recommended her. She started massaging my feet, and she came so enthusiastically every week for half a year, every Wednesday from 9 to 10 p.m., that we became friends. We talked like colleagues. And then one day I mentioned that I gave my house in Tarnok to my son because my grandchild was born. And, well, I won't be here in Tarnok next week, so you won't be able to come to me here anymore. And then she said, are you kidding me? So you have 8 to 10 guests a week or a month, and you don't know where you're going next week. I say, I still don't know because I can't see the place I'm going to yet. But I'm going, that's for sure, because I have to leave the apartment since my son and his family are painting it. And Moni said, listen, Chabi, I have an office in Besnur. I don't use the office all week either. What would you think if you rented out the office? So that's how I got my office in Besnur. So the office in Besnur came to me. Didn't go looking for the office in Besnur. I'm saying the next thing. I found the apartment in Kaposvar like this, and this will be, well, everyone will be amazed. He found the apartment for me. That actually, as our relationship came to an end, I was going on the 70 road, he was on the M7. Or the other way around, it doesn't really matter how we say it. We're just on similar paths. Just not together. We're not together now. And actually, I said that I'm going to leave and then I'll be close by. In Kaposvar, because we lived in Somogivamos next to Krishnavogi for 7 years. So I was commuting to Kaposvar, and I met a boxing coach, Gyula Abo. He became my boxing coach. I met Gyula in the sauna. I was at the flower bath in Kaposvar, and Gyula looked at me and said, well, we're not in Krishna Valley anyway. Well, I say everything is always good there. There is peace, there is love. So what if? And it turned out that he also read the Bhagavad Gita, went to the Krishna Valley, loves the Krishnas. So I say, so do I. So I know that he is among them. And I started going boxing. And across from the boxing gym in Kaposvar, there's a 4-story building. One day, I arrived early for training, at 3 for the 9 o'clock session, which started at 9. And I felt like, get out of the car, go into that building over there. Open the door, it will open, and go in and take a picture of the bulletin board. Well, I said, I'm going to do this, I swear. I got out, went in, pushed the door of the panel building. It opened easily. I went in and took a picture of the bulletin board. Well, I didn't have my glasses, so I couldn't read the small print, but I took a picture. And suddenly a guy came in wearing paint-covered clothes with a window under his arm. I say, "Are you renovating an apartment?" He says, "Yes." I say, "Is this going to be for rent or for sale? I live there now." So, God leads in a way that he shows and gives everything. If you let go of everything, if you're willing to let go of everything that you think is everything, and in the meantime it's nothing, and from that point on he leads you, so you just have to listen to him. He constantly tells you exactly when and where you need to be, what you need to do, and who you will meet. That's how I experienced divine self-surrender. That's all I could share with you. I got to this point because I was in a discussion group, they were talking, and I was just watching the conversation, just observing how they were ping-ponging ideas back and forth. I was the observer. And they talked about how, imagine there is an amazing Ayurvedic doctor in India whose father was also a doctor, Ayurvedic, and he does panchakarma like this. I say, panchakarma, well, that's fantastic. Pancha means 5, karma, they made the faith, and they purification, let's do it. And I immediately jumped into the conversation saying, "Excuse me, I just overheard what you were talking about," and I said, "I'm going to India too." And then they said, "Sure, you can come along." And then, within a few months from that point, I was already in India. And imagine, the situation happened where I submitted my application for an electronic visa to the Indian embassy. And I was standing in a little street in Budapest, going to a training over the weekend. And picture this. I was looking at my phone and I thought, I can't believe this. In a week, I'm heading to India, and my visa still hasn't arrived. So I said, what's going to happen? So I parked the car, and I started down a little street in Budapest, and the street was quiet. A little bus stopped in the whole street, Indians got out, and they were bowing. What are the Indians bowing for here? So what's happening here? And suddenly, I looked down at the license plate. I had stopped taking photos of what was happening to me, because it was just so amazing. The license plate on the car was India 1. That was probably the embassy's car, if it had India 1 on it. And at that moment, when I saw the India 1 license plate, my phone rang, it beeped, and my electronic visa had arrived. So at the very moment when I saw the car with India number 1, well, you can get to that level of creation where everything is so finely tuned that it just happens like this. In this, Swamiji, my master, had a very good story about the yogi sitting under the tree in India. And the yogi is already longing for something because his desires have started to arise. So he tries to see what it's like. And he's sitting under the tree and he says, "Oh, it would be so nice to have a good lunch. But not the kind of lunch I usually get, the leftovers they serve, but a nice little fancy table. That's what I want." And then suddenly, poof, there's my fancy little table under the tree for the yogi. The yogi eats the mysterious food, feels tired, and wishes for a bed after years on the ground. He eats, and then suddenly he feels, wow, I'm really tired, I could use a little rest. And then a bed would be nice, but not one that has been lying on the ground for decades. Well, let's lie on a bed, so let there be a bed. And suddenly there's the bed, and the yogi lies down on it, falls, sleep, and then it starts to get dark. He wakes up, looks up, and he can already see that it's getting dark. The last thought of the yogi was, "I hope a tiger doesn't come." And that's how the story ends. The yogi's last thought was, "I hope a tiger doesn't come." And the story ended. So the tiger actually ate the yogi. So there comes a moment in your life when your desires and I usually say that when thought, spoken word, action, desire, and fear come together, that's what you create, right? The thought, spoken word, and action bring your experiences to life, and desire acts like a spice or an indication, filling you up with either that or with fear, and you will encounter all of these in your life because that's how life works. It can't work any other way. And the yogi, it can't work any other way. And the legal for these, he does the zazonas, the pranayama, and all kinds of cleansing procedures. And after a while, he gets to the point where he already knows that if he thinks about anything, says anything, it happens that way. So the Alexis and I walked here the day before yesterday, 3 days ago at the most. And then we were baking here, and I said that I would dance again, how nice it would be to dance. Only dance a little. And there was a disco party at the harbor. A DJ booth Everything was already set up at the harbor in Sutivan. We came back home, so what was going on here on the stage until dawn? Armor and music. So if you heard about the party a few days ago, well, I'm sorry, but that's exactly what I was craving. So, you know, they might have been there anyway. But somehow the two just matched. They came together perfectly. My desire met with them too. So everything will happen in an instant. So when we're looking for shells, we talk about the shell. There are very few shells in this bay if you go down here in front, but we put on the diving mask, and then whatever we're talking about, sooner or later, I'll take it out, because we'll take it out. That's how life works. But we put on the diving mask, and whatever we're talking about, sooner or later, I'll take it out, because we'll take it out. That's how life works. This is manifestation. This is creation itself. So a person can reach this over a lifetime. That's what I wish for you in your lives. I have no other wish for you than to dance again. You can get this far. It can be done. You can reach this point. But from there, you really have to pay attention, because then everything happens like this, and you can create in the same way. And you can do this too. So I'm not any more special than you are. I just know how it works. So I do it consciously. And I understand what the binding forces are, what the obstacles are, what this whole thing is about. And then I will operate this whole thing accordingly. Finally, I will tell you how I will have a book. 11 years ago, I planned to write a book. And I actually started writing it back then. For a little while. I was part of a veterinary assistance program because I was one. And I got to know a veterinarian. And I assisted them for a short time. I started writing in my journal. I wrote a spiritual journal where I noted down what I was thinking, what I was doing, and what was happening around me. And this journal was written hour by hour. So I constantly had a notebook with me, like a diary and pen. And they thought that Csaba was definitely not clean, because whatever was said around me, I heard it there. I was part of the conversation, and I wrote everything down. So I wrote about what was happening around me. And after a while, I got to the point where I didn't need to write anymore. Because after about half a year, something came up and I said, oh my God, this feels so familiar to me. I rewound. Well, I say it's already in pieces here. So the manifesto was already in pieces there, and suddenly the puzzle came together. So how you can get into the moment of your creation, that's going to be the title of the book. It's likely to be published this winter. I'm just making some corrections, so they sent it back for grammatical revisions, this and that. It's going to be titled The Book of Creation. And that coincidences do not exist. That's what the book will be about. The book will be completely about how I've seen the world since my childhood. What I observed in my parents as a child, when my father talked about something, was how it came true, because my dad was a very powerful creator, too. Sometimes my mom would call him Gabor. You're a wizard or a witch, and how I later developed this awareness in my life. Well, I hit the bullseye 9 times out of 10. So, maybe sometimes I'll be an 8 or a 9, but I can already see how it works, and I know it confidently, and I will pass the same thing on in the book. Well, I hit the bullseye 9 times out of 10, so it's possible that I might be an 8 or a 9 at some point, but I can already see how it works, and I know it confidently, and I will pass the same thing on in the book. This book will encompass 50 years, and there will be a lot of creations and many individually experienced cases in which I describe what I've gone through, and I believe that others can learn from this, because we will experience similar things. Just the play will be a little different, but you'll recognize the similarities in it, because we are one and all is one. That's how the world works. It's a case where I describe what I've experienced, and I believe that others can learn from it, because we will go through similar things. Just the play will be a little different, but you'll recognize the similarities in it, because we are one and all is one. That's how the world works. I'm in a very lucky position regarding artificial intelligence because my friend Alex has been a computer scientist for 15 years. So whoever you see with me, Guy, I'll tell you how I met him, and then you'll imagine who comes to me. Actually, about 10 years ago, I wanted to make flyers, design them, etc. So I went into a printing shop with my friends, whom I've known for at least 20 years, and I asked them if they knew someone who could help me with design, manage information, run a website, and handle Facebook. I didn't want to deal with that myself anymore, because I didn't want to do everything on my own. I don't want to deal with this anymore because I can't do everything myself. And they said, Alex, come out, they're looking for you. And then a 23-year-old young guy came out. I introduced myself saying I'm Csaba, and he's Alex. I showed him the website on a laptop or some kind of computer, and told him that this needs to be programmed, and this and that would be the task. I asked him, what do you want in return? So, are you going to work on an hourly wage with a contract? How are we going to do this? And Alex said, imagine that he scanned my website thoroughly. Well, a computer scientist scans it in a way that you wouldn't even know. So, the menu items here, and then suddenly he said, I'm interested in what you know, and that we start working in a way where I give what I know, and he gives what he knows. And we've been working like this for 10 years, where he shares his knowledge. I call him the PC guru. And he's completely German, Chinese, working for a lot of companies. So he's a fantastic programmer, doing amazing things. And we started working with AI. We used AI to 3 plans were created for AI. And I accepted one of the 3 plans. AI, the perfect, wonderful thing. The question is what you will use it for. Alex could tell you exactly what the situation is, but that's all I understood from it as a user. So, if you ask AI what wants, it will tell you exactly. So, AI will expose itself, meaning it won't be able to use itself against you. So, what humanity programs, we program. So, AI looks like all of our conversations. So, what humanity programs, we program. So, AI looks like all of our conversations. So, our communications, all of our data, everything we know. Since we've been communicating for over 20 years. And they just record it and upload it to the cloud. So AI is us. That's who we are. Just a lot of us together. And AI can be used for good, wonderful things. So for example, on the website, when we wrote an introduction for one of the sections, I wrote an introduction and I said, well, I've been writing these introductions for 10 or 20 years since I've studied marketing too. Well, I said, what would AI write? And we really accepted what AI wrote, because AI perfectly described how it should be. So I think right now I see that the world is in a wonderful situation, because AI perfectly described how it should be. So I think right now, see that the world is in a wonderful situation. In such a wonderful situation that everything is available. Well, just imagine. These are dimension crossing tools. So it's like if I type in Sydney right now, and then I call one of my friends in Sydney, it will log in from Sydney. Isn't it a miracle? Well, there's nothing like that. We thought it wasn't there, but it is. So basically, these are dimension crossing tools. So let's also look at the good side of these. You get on a plane, fly for 18 hours, and land in Buenos Aires, for example. Well, how fantastic. So that by boat, on foot, by train, or how long it would take you to get there. And these are all inner journeys. That's what I've realized. So you travel inside, but you experience it outside on a plane. So basically, these are inner journeys. It's just that your inner content gets projected into the hologram, into the matrix, and that's how you experience it. You believe that you're buying a plane ticket, believe that you're getting on the plane, but these are inner journeys. So for example, when I went to India, we were with Advait Ripati, the doctor. He immediately welcomed us into his family, and we stayed at his house in Delhi. We were just looking at each other, wondering why he was letting us into his house and why he was giving us a room. He gave us his own room, cleared everything out, and said that his bed was my bed. Well, I say that's really great. And after a while, we were actually chatting with Advait. That his mom leaned against me like that, and I leaned against his mom too, this 70-something lady. And we communicated on our own level that she used to be my mom, I was her son, and we were a family. And basically, you're traveling back to your past lives. So you're not doing anything else. Wherever you go, you're just going inside yourself. You just experience it outside. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So, these are wonderful tools. So, let's not criticize the world, let's not criticize these things, but rather see how we can use them for good. Well, it's a personal choice. Well, I choose what I use it for. If you know and are aware of what he wants to program you for, and where he wants to take you, then you don't have to go that way. Do you understand? So, these are wonderful tools, and Alex says the same thing. And he always reinforces this in me, that Csaba. And we always talk it over. And he is always right about it. And I accept that these are wonderful things. And now is the time to grow the most. I think humanity is at such a peak right now that you can evolve in an instant. Because you can type it into Google, you can search for it, you can grow from it. In the past, people couldn't get out of the village because you couldn't even imagine that there was life outside our village. So the world has opened up, the borders have opened, and you can leap through all dimensions. Well, the question is, how aware are you? So I say the same about the AI, that it can be used consciously, fantastically, and it's a wonder. So for example, the guy who stayed in the Himalayas wasn't actually called Szilard. We entered precise data and specific keywords, and the AI created an image for us that Szilard is now up there, sitting on top of the Himalayas and meditating. And there sits Szilard and meditates. And it beautifully presented this to us in an image. So it's like Szilard is actually there. It's just a game, but it can do anything. The question is, where are you taking it? Do you understand? I think this is the world we live in today. I'm saying I see the cam tree, I see everything. But on the other hand, I know, at least I apply how to lead it out. So, we need to start leading out the difficult films. You can't do anything else. The world is going in the direction it needs to go. Everything happens exactly as it should. No one is against us. No one, the whole world is here for us. Everything happens for us. How do you stay human? How much do you stay human? And how conscious will you be? That's it. Thank you so much for having me here.